Welcome to the Dual Threat Sports Podcast number 4. We're your hosts, Micah Wright and Jaden Lewis. And another great week in the NFL and a crazy week as a lot of injuries happen, including two of the best quarterbacks in the league for some time. Drew Brees out for 6 weeks. Big Ben is now out for the year. But first, we're going to talk about Antonio Brown playing despite the numerous allegations, and he really picked up where he left off.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to be in the future. As you saw, there's another allegation that came out today, but he did have a great game against Miami. Well, Miami's not probably one of the worst teams we've ever seen, but he still had 4 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown.
Yeah, with Antonio Brown, it's just, let's just dedicate a drive to make him happy. And that's exactly what they did. I think it was either their first or second drive. He had pretty much all of those targets and the 4 catches and the touchdown. And the touchdown, it looked like he pushed off, and maybe you review that for pass interference. But clearly the league did not think that it was pass interference, which brings us to something I want to talk about, which is the new pass interference review rule, which makes absolutely no sense so far.
Yeah, it's really, I don't know how it's really made it better, because watching the Vikings game, the Vikings actually scored a touchdown, but then once they were reviewing the score, they found there was offensive pass interference, which I did not see it anywhere. But it seemed like it's made it more complicated, and the fans are not happy with it, neither are the players, and it's just created a real, big controversy.
Yeah, I don't know how they say it needs to be completely, you have to completely see the interference take place, which I don't know who rules that, but and then even last night, the Sunday night game, you saw clear pass interference. They review it, and then they don't call it. And then there was some where they did call it, and it didn't seem like it was clear. So it's just a mess. I think it's just put in place to mess with coaches, and I think we're going to see more and more of that throughout the year, and it's just going to be chaos. And probably in the playoffs, someone will lose because of it, which you hope doesn't happen, but that's the way it seems like it's going to go right now. But as for the two legendary quarterbacks already out with injury, Big Ben is gone for the year, and Drew Brees is out for 6 weeks with a broken thumb. Big Ben hurt his elbow and needs surgery. So are the Steelers going to bring out Charlie Batch out of retirement?
No, but Mason Rudolph, I don't know how he's going to perform. But with the Saints, I think they should be okay. Teddy Bridgewater, he's proven that he's been a starter in this league, and Drew Brees is only out for 6 weeks, unlike the Big Ben where he's out the rest of the season. So it'll be very interesting to see how the Saints do in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah, it's been a few years since Teddy Bridgewater's played a considerable amount of time. He's been in the games, preseason games. He looks pretty good. In a couple games last year, he got in and got playing time when they were ahead or behind by a lot. So I think he's decent. Mason Rudolph's more of a question mark. But when you look at the whole season, I think the Steelers are in a much worse place than the Saints, especially because the Steelers don't have a whole lot of playmakers like the Saints do with Alvin Kamara to maybe help Bridgewater more, which you always want when you have a backup quarterback. All right, so before we get into some college football week 3, let's talk about the ESPN Fantasy app. So it's finally fantasy football season, and what better way to play than with the ESPN Fantasy Sports app? The Fantasy app is the #1 sports app in the world for fantasy football, with tons of information on players from some of the best analysts out there. ESPN Fantasy Sports is second to none when it comes to fantasy football. Join a league and create a team today at ESPN or fantasy.espn.com or download the ESPN Fantasy Sports app from the App Store. So, college football week 3, not a whole lot of intriguing matchups, but there's some great games.
Yeah, there was some great games. This was the first time in 2 years, I think, that no ranked teams played each other, but we still were treated to some great games, one particularly Florida and Kentucky. Kentucky had a chance to win it at the end, but they missed the field goal, and then to make matters worse, Florida went and scored on a 75-yard jet sweep to win the game.
Yeah, that was an ultimate you think you're going to get the ball back and you're only down. You would need a field goal to win. And like you said, they missed it before, and they just needed to call timeouts and get a stop, and then they let a jet sweep kind of ruin the game for them, and it was the dagger in that one. and Florida won by 8. But Kentucky hung in there. Their quarterback's out for the year, which actually multiple quarterbacks now in the SEC East are out for the year already.
Franks.
Yeah, and then Jake Bentley at South Carolina is as well. So, but Florida survives, and I think that's just going to be the key for them. Their defense is always good, but without Felipe Franks, we'll see how they transpire down the road. But Iowa State at home against Iowa was a great game. It was a scrappy game. It was a messy game, but 18-17 win for Iowa on the road. A good one for them. It felt like one of those classic games between those two teams.
Yeah, and the game seemed like it took forever. They had 2 lightning delays, I believe. And Iowa State, they made a crucial mistake at the end of the game. As you saw, the player ran into the other player on the punt and fumbled, and the game was over. So I know it was very, very heartbreaking for
just a wild game.
The Iowa State fans. And it was also the first time College Game Day had traveled to Ames, so it's pretty heartbreaking.
Yeah, that game just reminded me of this is more so mid-2000s games between these two teams. I think there was a game that was like 13-5 or 17-5. I think in like 2008. There's a bunch of weird games I remember watching these two teams play, like the same kind of 18-15 weird score looking game. This one was 18-17, so that one was really what we thought it was going to be. And then as far as the rest of the games go, Clemson and Alabama really handled their business against conference teams. And UCF looks like national champions again with their dominant win against Stanford.
Yeah, they embarrassed Stanford, I would say, 45-27. That really wasn't much of a game. KJ Costello, he did not look very good against this USC defense. He went 21 for 44, only 199 yards passing and a touchdown with an interception.
Yeah, and he's been banged up. And Mackenzie Milton for UCF was also out for the year, but Dylan Gabriel stepped up and really played a pretty clean, perfect game for them with 4 touchdowns, 347 yards through the air. And then on the ground, they got it done with a couple rushing touchdowns, and Greg McCrae with 109 yards and a touchdown for them as well. So they're looking good. They might claim another national championship, as they love to do, but we'll keep an eye on them looking forward. And then before we get into some MLB playoff talk, we have a word on the delicious chicken sandwich from Popeyes. The sandwich features a buttermilk battered and hand-breaded white meat chicken fillet, topped with pickles and a spicy Cajun bread on a toasted brioche bun. With more than 3,000 restaurants across the country, there's no better place to treat yourself than Popeyes Louisiana Kitchen's delicious fried chicken, as they've been treating Americans for nearly 50 years. So, the MLB playoff race is heating up. It's go time for teams on the fringe or in the wild card position. And there's really, outside of, I think, 4 teams have really locked up their positions. I think the Braves, I think they already clinched. The Dodgers already clinched in the NL. But then the NL Central is a mess right now.
It is. It's very interesting. You got the Cardinals and Cubs. They will be going at it soon. They have 7 games against each other, which will probably most likely decide the NL Central. And then the Cardinals have to play the Nationals tonight and tomorrow and on Wednesday. So the Cardinals, they're going to have to really step it up if they actually want to get back to the playoffs, which they haven't been in a while.
Yeah, and they've kind of been a team you don't really know about heading into the season, but they played well down the stretch. But then right now, I think they've lost a couple in a row, haven't been playing great. But then you look at the Brewers, who are 9 out of their last 10 is what they've won, and I think they're a game out of the second wild card, which is the Cubs. But you look at the Cubs' schedule, and I think they have the Reds and the Pirates, and
that's pretty easy.
And then the Cardinals with 7 games, like you said. So it's going to be a wild race in the Central, which seems like the division where this always happens. And then, I think we gotta talk about my Oakland A's because they are on fire. 71 wins, 35 losses since May 16th. They're now a game and a half up on the second wild card, so they're in position to have a home game for the wild card, which would be a world of difference for them to try to get into the division series.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. They could actually be a sleeper team that could go a long way in this playoffs coming up.
Yeah, they've won 6 out of the last 8, I think, against the Astros, which is something they haven't done really since the Astros have been playing like they have. So I think you got to keep an eye on them. I love to see that coming from them as they're good again, which it's been a little while. And then before we head out, we have a couple ads for you guys. First, we're going to talk about the Little Caesars app. So Little Caesars provides a perfect game day meal with their Little Caesars app. Order any pizza and get a 2-liter of soda with the code FREE2L1. That's FREE2L1 with any pizza order to perfect your game day experience. Nothing's better than a free soda, especially when paired with an extramost bestest cheese or pepperoni pizza that's already only $6.
Before we get into our next segment, let's hear a word from Jimmy John's. Are you hungry but don't live in one of Jimmy John's 2,800 plus delivery zones? Well, here's great news for you. Jimmy John's is building a house for one lucky customer inside their delivery zones. The only thing people have to do is submit a 250-word essay explaining why Jimmy John's should build them a house. The list will then be narrowed down to 500 people, and one random winner will be selected. Enter Jimmy John's today for a chance to get a new house.
All right, so we have our Week 3 picks for you guys before we head out. And an update, our Week 2 picks. Jaden, what happened?
I don't know. I'm just went with my gut this week, and somehow none of the teams that I wanted to win. Especially, I'm giving up on the Miami Dolphins. I thought, they would be a Cinderella team this year, but now I don't know about that.
Yeah, it's a tough game for them. I've been consistent so far. 10-6 this week, 10-5-1 last week. Week 3, I think there's a lot of crazy games that we'll get into after they happen, but a lot of weird matchups and some good matchups. So.
And we've also guaranteed that the Browns will win tonight.
Yeah, we are going to go with that. I think the Jets have no hope without Sam Darnold. So we're giving ourselves a win for that one. So let's get into these Week 3 picks. And, of course, we have to play our NFL primetime music.
And it's back.
NFL primetime is back. That's some of the biggest news that I've ever heard, but we're not going to get into that right now because we have a Thursday night matchup between the Titans and the Jags. This might not look great, but it could be a great game. But I have Tennessee big 27-9.
I'm taking Tennessee as well, 20-14. I still think Gardner Minshew is going to have a great game.
Miami heads to Dallas looking to right their ship that has been negative 92-point differential so far. I got Dallas by 30, 42-12.
I'm having Dallas by 39, 42-3.
Cincy at Buffalo. This could be a sloppy game. I see a lot of field goals. 19-16 Bills.
I have Josh Allen literally carrying the Bills, 23-17.
I like it. Detroit at Philly. Detroit with a big win against the LA Chargers, but I got Philly bouncing back from Sunday night, 24-17.
Philadelphia at home against the Lions. I think this was going to be a good one for them, 26-17.
The Jets at New England. I don't even remember when the Jets won a game like this. I got the Patriots 37-10.
And I'm going to take New England as well. The offense will go crazy, 38-22.
Atlanta with a big win Sunday night. Look to take that momentum to Indy in the Dome. I got them 30-21. I love me some Falcons.
I'm going to actually take Jacoby Brissett in an upset against the Falcons, 24-17.
Here's our matchup of interest, and I think we don't want to jinx either of our teams, or we just think our teams are bad. I have the Vikings at home against the Raiders, winning 26-23.
The Raiders have a good run defense, and that's something Minnesota's good at, so I'm going to take Oakland against my Vikes, 27-17.
Ravens at Chiefs. This looks like a shootout as well as Lamar Jackson's playing, and then we know Mahomes is good. I got Baltimore 38-35 on the road.
I think this is going to be the Rams-Chiefs game from last year. I'm taking Kansas City at home, 48-41.
Denver, tough loss, and they have to go to Green Bay to try to get their first win of the season. I don't see it. 24-7 Packers.
I'm taking Green Bay as well, 29-9.
Carolina at Arizona, two teams that are winless. I got Carolina 26-16.
This game's in Arizona, so I think Kyler Murray is going to step up for them, 30-24 Arizona.
And then the Saints without Drew Brees, going to be a tough battle on the road at the 12th man in Seattle. I got Seattle 34-17.
I think New Orleans' hopes are kind of down right now, and I think Seattle's going to take it to them, 30-13.
I think this is the best matchup of the day. Houston at the Chargers. I got them 28-27. I think it'll be a great game.
The Chargers are coming off a loss to the Detroit Lions, so I'm going to take Houston on the road, 25-20.
Then we got Pittsburgh at San Francisco. A Roethlisberger-less Pittsburgh. I think Rudolph somehow finds a way to win 21-17.
The 49ers put up 41 points on the Bengals last week. I have them putting up 37 on another AFC opponent, 37-20.
Then Sunday Night Football in Cleveland. Hasn't been there since 2008, but I think the Rams spoil it 33-27.
I'm going to take Cleveland in overtime, 23-20.
And then to end the week, we have Chicago at Washington. I think Washington wins in an upset, 24-21.
I miss Case Keenum so much on the Vikings, so I think the Redskins are going to win this one, 16-10 in defensive game.
All right, that was our Week 3 picks for the NFL. We thank you guys for tuning in, and we hope to see you next time. This has been the Dual Threat Sports Podcast with your hosts Micah Wright and Jaden Lewis.